Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Christian. Happy birthday to you. Woo!
Yeah, buddy.
When Christian was born, and it was just amazing looking at him, his little hands, his little feet. He had Mike's feet, and just seeing all the different features on him, it was amazing. Just seeing this little human is part of us, you know, so.
Very cute. Very cute baby. I know all parents say the same thing about their kids, but there's some kids that are really pretty, really cute kids. And ours was a very good looking baby.
I think Christian brought the family together in the sense that, well, since now there was a baby involved, you know, grandma always wants to see Christian. And so they would visit more often, especially with Mike's mom.
Yeah, my mom was always there.
Because if I was working or him and she had the time, she would help us with Christian. So yeah, in a sense, you know, I got more involved with his mom.
Que yo lo cuidaba los domingos y entonces se me salía corriendo, yo corriendo atrás de él y a risa y risa el niño porque yo corría atrás de él.
Like he was just like a good kid naturally, like by instinct, like the way he was born. Like I mean, he was even born like vehicles. He liked like old school cars. Like instead, like you know, kids are now like, oh, I want a Corvette, I want a Lamborghini.
He wanted an El Camino.
Yeah, he wanted like a damn El Camino.
And then too recently, we were talking about.
Yeah.
He's like, maybe I'll get a Corvette.
Yeah.
Like
but like an older
a
Corvette.
used Corvette, of course, right?
Yeah.
So
A used Corvette.
He was an old soul. He was into like old music.
Oh, sí, a él le gustaba mucho bailar y me agarraba a bailar. Cuando él estaba más chiquito me agarraba a bailar y, Grandma, vente a bailar.
he liked Frank Sinatra,
Yes. He's weird like that. He was weird like that.
Beethoven.
But I mean, we were like, okay, well, if you like it, run it.
Yeah.
Do it.
He was like an older man trapped in a young boy's body. That was Chris.
He knew how to oil changes, plugs, everything. Basic maintenance. Basic maintenance. He knew how to do it on a car. If I had to do something, I'd be like, hey, let's go outside, because, you know, what I mean, because this is what you're gonna learn today. That was our special time, because we would be together and he learned as those are like special moments I'll never forget.
Well, the vacations that we would have would be, my sister moved to San Diego almost around the same time we moved to Riverside. I would visit my sister a lot.
I would say maybe at least twice a month. And Chris was always with his mom, no matter what. He would always make her smile. Chris always protected his sister. He was always there for her. Sometimes, like, he would even finish sentences for her. They had a really strong bond.
Well, he taught me that I shouldn't take anyone's garbage. Like, I shouldn't, like, just let people hurt me.
He definitely was a just kid in the sense that he didn't like people being mistreated.
Bullied. He hated bullying. But Aiden was like his bestest friend. But he was a little guy. He was a little guy, and then my kid was a monster kid. He was huge, and then they like used to mess with Aiden at school because he's a little guy, and my kid would always be like, hey, like you know, like that's it, leave him alone, or else you're gonna deal with me. And then they would like not mess with him anymore because he had his big old bodyguard right there. And then everybody loved him for that. Everybody loved him for that because he was just kind of like, yeah, he's big and strong and he can fight, but I mean, he's still like a dork.
Honestly, like, he would show affection in the sense, like, for instance, I was in my room watching TV, laying in bed, and he would come, hey, Mom, and then he would lay next to me. Hey, Mom, can you scratch my head? So I would be scratching his head. Can you scratch my back? So I was scratching his back. And then every morning, hey, Mama, you know, always he was tall, he would hug me. He was a sweetheart when it came, he was my teddy bear.
He was like a big teddy bear. I mean, everybody knew him for that. Even though he was like big in size, he was just lovable. That was just him. He was always happy, always with a smile, always willing to help out people. And that was him. That was his personality.
Christian's favorite holiday was Halloween, for sure.
Forever. That was his thing. Well, that's your thing too. big
Yeah.
time.
Me and him, I think in that sense, we loved watching, scary movies.
Yeah.
Talked about scary movies. And then especially when it came to Halloween, finding out what he wanted to dress like.
Me and Chris dressed up like Alice in Wonderland characters. I dressed up as the White Queen, and my brother played the Mad Hatter.
They were super like all into all the Harry Potters and the backstories, and I just listened to them like,
Yeah, like when we went to Universal Studios, we were super excited. He got his wand, and
My mom was like, get anything that you want, Chris. And this is how I said he was just nerdy and into books and stuff like that. He wanted a Harry Potter wand, and it was like $60. And I'm like, seriously? Like, that's what you want out of the whole store? He's like, yeah, that's what I want. And I'm like, what does it do? He's like, oh no, it's just, he was like, Donnie, it's like from the movie, like it's magic. That was just like, oh my God, you're such a dork. He's like, but this is what I want.
we always made an effort to involve him in sports. I've already had asked him before because I wanted him to play football, obviously because I played, so I wanted him to play. I like never made him do anything. I never pushed him. I just kind of like brought it up. Hey, you should probably look into football. You're a big kid. And then he'd be like, nah. But then just like out of nowhere, he's like, yeah, you know what? I think I'm gonna do it. But that's when that day happened.
I had gone out of work, and he told me they were gonna have their first day of practice. And as we were driving over there, I'm like, so are you excited? He's like, yeah, I'm excited that, with COVID, I didn't get to do anything, and now I can get back into the field and start doing something again. And I just remember saying to him, well, okay, babe, I love you. Call me when you're done. And I received a phone call, and I didn't recognize it. So I didn't answer it because, typically when you see something like that, you just kind of ignore it. And then they called me again. And it was the coach, and he told me that that he was there with Christian, and that that he felt he was probably exhausted, and that he started asking him some questions and he didn't answer them correctly. But it might have been because the lack of him probably working out, or he was probably just dehydrated. And he told me to if I could go ahead and go pick him up and drive down towards the field so they could help me put him in the car. And when I got there, he was sitting up, standing next to the coaches. But I looked at him, and then this is me getting off the car, and then he was looking at the coaches, and then he started looking at them like he didn't recognize them. But he wasn't the same kid that I had dropped off. He was like slowly fading away. I would talk to him, and he couldn't respond to my questions.
I mean, with my basic knowledge, I knew he was in trouble. I knew that it was not even like dehydration. I knew he needed to go to the hospital. I knew he was in danger. He was doing really bad. That's why I'm like, babe, I need you to call 911 right now. Like, we went all the way to the hospital, and the rest is history. The rest he just went from bad to worse to worse to worse until everything failed on him. It was too late.
As soon as I got the call, it was my sister Cindy that he had an accident at school, and they had taken him to the hospital, and that he wasn't doing too good.
She said, he's gonna be fine. And I told her, okay, that's fine. Well, just let us know about anything. I just don't have a good feeling about this. I think we should go.
The very next day, we all got in the car and drove to California to be with her and to be with Chris at the hospital. I saw him when he was at the hospital. I saw him before he passed away. It was just hard. some memories that, and images that I will never forget. And when we got to the room, Chris just was laying down. All these machines were around him. He was pretty much intubated. All these machines around him. My sister was just telling him how she was gonna miss him. How proud of him she was. And when she was talking to him, he kind of opened his eyes, and for me, that was his last goodbye. I mean, he couldn't talk, but he opened his eyes and kind of looked at her, and he closed them again. And I know that was his way of telling Mom, like, goodbye, I'm leaving. But it was hard. It's hard, and I can just imagine how that still affects my sister and Mike and Victoria. I mean, that's not something easy to go through.
You know, his kidneys failed, and since he wasn't losing fluids, that his extremities were getting bigger, and if it came to that, he would end up losing, you know, his feet, his hands. So when the doctor was telling me all this stuff, like, it was the first time, I think, where I realized that I was losing my son.
And I noticed that she had like tears in her eyes. I was like, what was happening? What's going on? Why did she look sad? And then like when like the doctors told me that like they couldn't help him. It was genuinely traumatic for me. Especially when Dad told us that he died.
What stopped you from calling 911 early on? What held you back from just making that call? And he'd still be alive right now. What held you back? What? I don't understand. Till this day, I don't understand their mindset. If you see a kid in trouble, call 911.
The what ifs come to your head. Like, what if I didn't take them to practice? Or what if we didn't, you know, ask them, do you want to play football again? Or, you know, there's just so many things you ask yourself. What I should have done or what I could have done different. Now when I think of the trust I gave that school, it's like, where did it go? I mean, you're in charge of all these kids. And they failed one. They failed my son.
My sister tries to be strong.
I know she's standing right now because of her daughter. And her husband, of course, but I know this is very hard for her. And I mean, I admire her for just doing the every day-to-day things. But I know that she keeps on pushing and living life to set a good example for her daughter.
I think of him, and it's like my past is just become a beautiful memory. It upsets me and I get mad, but I think of him and the only thing I can see is his smile. He always had the biggest smile in the morning. Hey, mama, and you know, big bear hug. He was just lovable. Nothing was too serious to not be happy for what you had. I see my daughter and I think of him and who he was with her. It's like I hear him in the back of my head, Mom, you gotta keep going. Get strength from wherever it is, but I think that's what makes me stronger, just thinking of him and hearing him telling me, Mom, just you gotta take care of my sister, you gotta keep going, you gotta keep staying strong.
Ellos siempre estaban así, muy juntitos siempre.
Mike ended up leaving his job, which was never really forecasted. And in that sense, I mean, especially with him, I've seen a drastic change because he's always been the provider for the family. And I don't feel like, now he's kind of getting out of that hole and kind of been more around people, but he came to the point where he didn't want to leave the house.
But I was doing really bad for a long time. I'd be in the room days, not going anywhere, in the dark. I don't want to see no one. I don't want to talk to nobody. I wouldn't answer no one's calls.
Pues a Michael le entraron depresiones, todavía tiene depresiones por Cristian. Michael todavía se siente muy mal.
They decided to move back to El Paso, especially for my sister. She felt like it was important for her to be close to family after Chris's passing and have more, emotional support.
The best situation was for him to be cremated where he was born and kept the promise of bringing him to Texas. So, yeah. So as right now, we do have an altar and he's at home here with us. This one is the Mad Hatter. Again, he was a big fan of Alice in Wonderland and, fantasy with his name. And usually Mad Hatter has a 10-6, but we put 10-1 because October 1st was the day he passed.
I got this tattoo because he was a big history buff like me. Like we like, ancient Rome. Like to me, he's always gonna be my little warrior, my little fighter, because he's a tough kid. He's a super tough kid. So it makes me sad that he never had his first kiss. Makes me sad that I didn't go when he finished his high school graduation. Makes me sad that he never had a girlfriend. I never got to meet his girlfriend. Makes me sad that he will never get married. Makes me sad that he will never have kids. He didn't even get to live. He's a little kid. He's only 15. I have this huge sadness that we'll never get to see that. It was all taken away. It was all stripped away. So we found
this journal. I remember finding this and reading this first page about death. And how you saw it. No one has knowledge of what happens after death, but they shouldn't fear it. Remember death, a statement from one of the greatest Roman emperors, as well to be considered the founder of Stoicism, which is what I like considered. Life could be cut short at any minute, so we should live the best life you can. This is where I must begin. Tomorrow I will seek to begin to better myself physically in order to focus on mental betterment. I will leave a legacy behind in this world, and I will begin now.